Prejudice weaves itself into the fabric of everyday life, hiding in plain sight until someone brave enough forces it into the open. In a struggling coastal town where fishing boats bobbed in murky waters and salt-worn buildings lined cracked streets, that truth was about to be proven in ways no one expected. Elena Reyes wiped grease from her hands as she stood in her small auto repair shop, the afternoon sun streaming through windows that overlooked the harbor. The rhythmic clang of her wrench against an engine block had become her meditation, a far cry from the days when she'd competed in kickboxing tournaments across 3 states. Those days felt like another lifetime. Now, at 42, with a few extra pounds and silver threading through her black hair, Elena preferred the quiet satisfaction of fixing broken cars to the roar of the crowd. She closed the hood of an old sedan and checked the wall clock. Time for lunch. The Anchor's Rest, a weathered seafood restaurant 2 blocks down, had become her regular spot. The owner, Marcus Chen, made the best fish tacos on the coast, and the atmosphere was relaxed, exactly what Elena needed after a morning of wrestling with stubborn transmissions. The restaurant's interior was dim and cool, decorated with fishing nets and faded photographs of better days. Marcus looked up from behind the counter, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "The champion graces us again," he said, sliding a cold beer across the bar. Elena shook her head with a soft laugh. "That champion retired a decade ago, Marcus. Now I'm just Elena the mechanic." "You don't stop being a legend just because you hang up your gloves," Marcus replied, already preparing her usual order. "You'll always be the toughest person I know." Elena settled onto her regular stool, the leather creaking under her weight. Once she'd been lean and lightning fast, her body a weapon honed through countless hours of training. Injuries had ended her career, a torn ACL that never quite healed right, followed by a concussion that her doctor said was one too many. Time had softened her frame, but beneath the surface, muscle memory remained, waiting. "Just here for your cooking and some peace," Elena said, accepting the beer. "Don't need to relive old glory." Marcus grinned. "Food's coming right up. And you know you've always got peace here, unless someone decides to cause trouble." Outside, the afternoon bustle continued, tourists browsing shops, locals gossiping on corners, gulls crying overhead. But across the street, in the shadow of a boarded-up tackle shop, a different kind of energy simmered. 5 men lounged against motorcycles, their shaved heads gleaming in the sunlight, tattoos crawling up necks and arms like warnings etched in ink. They were fixtures in town now, a blight that locals had learned to avoid. Vincent Viper Caldwell flicked his cigarette onto the pavement, grinding it under his boot as his cold eyes fixed on the restaurant. A cruel smile played at his lips. "Cozy little place, isn't it?" he muttered to his crew. Beside him, a lean man with a scorpion tattooed on his throat smirked. "Looks pretty quiet. Bet they don't get many visitors like us." Viper's smile widened like oil spreading across water. "Let's change that." Inside the Anchor's Rest, the atmosphere was easy and warm. Elena sat near the counter, savoring her meal while Marcus chatted with regulars. An old blues song played from a radio tucked behind the bar, filling the space with lazy warmth. The door burst open with a bang that made several patrons jump. 5 men strode in, their presence immediately suffocating the room's comfort. Conversations died mid-sentence as wary eyes tracked the newcomers. Viper led the group, his sharp gaze sweeping the restaurant with predatory interest. His eyes landed on Elena and lingered with calculated intensity. Well, Viper announced loudly, his voice cutting through the silence. "Didn't know this place came with entertainment." Marcus straightened behind the counter, stepping forward with crossed arms. "Order something or leave. We don't want trouble here." Viper ignored him completely, his focus locked on Elena. "Hey, big woman. You always eat like this, or is today special?" Elena carefully wiped her mouth with a napkin and looked up, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. "You'd better hope I don't decide to work off this meal." The room went deathly still. Even the old radio seemed to fade into the background as tension thickened like fog rolling off the ocean. Viper leaned against a nearby table, his tattooed arms folded across his chest, confidence radiating from every pore. His crew spread out behind him, filling the small restaurant with an oppressive energy. "You know," Viper began, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "I've been thinking this town's gotten too mixed. Too many people who don't belong." Elena didn't look up from her plate. She'd heard men like Viper before, loud, self-assured, desperate for validation. They fed on intimidation and thrived on others' fear. But Elena had stopped letting people like that get under her skin long ago. "Don't see what that's got to do with me," Elena said evenly, taking a slow sip of her beer. Viper's smirk widened. "Oh, it's got everything to do with you, sweetheart. You're Hispanic, you're overweight, and you're sitting here like you own the place." Marcus stepped forward, his jaw tight. "Take your boys and get out. Now." But Viper waved him off dismissively. "See, it's not about owning anything. It's about knowing where you belong." And you, he pointed at Elena, you don't belong here. Elena set her glass down with deliberate care. She turned slightly in her seat, meeting Viper's gaze with unwavering calm. I belong wherever I choose to be. Viper chuckled, glancing back at his crew. You hear that? Big girl thinks she can talk back. One of the thugs, the one with the scorpion tattoo, laughed. Looks like she's got more mouth than room for it on that frame. The restaurant was silent now except for the faint hum of the radio. Elena shifted in her seat, finally standing to face Viper directly. Even with his aggressive posture, she matched his height, her presence solid and unmovable. You've said your piece, Elena stated, her voice low but edged with steel. Time to move along. Viper's smirk faded into something darker. How about we move you along instead? The tension snapped like a wire pulled too tight. Viper's crew surged forward, but Elena was already moving. Years of training kicked in, muscle memory overriding thought. She sidestepped the first attacker, driving her elbow into his ribs with precision that sent him stumbling into a table. Another thug grabbed for her arm, but Elena twisted free, her hand catching his wrist and wrenching it until he yelped. A swift kick to his knee dropped him to the floor. Chaos erupted. Tables overturned, glasses shattered, and Marcus ducked behind the counter, shouting for them to take it outside. Elena didn't want the fight here, not in Marcus's place, not where it would destroy what little safety the restaurant represented. She grabbed Viper by his collar mid-swing, pulling him close. You want this fight? Take it outside. With a powerful shove, she sent him stumbling toward the door. Viper's face twisted with rage as he recovered his balance. Come on, he roared to his crew, storming out into the street. Elena followed, her broad shoulders filling the doorway as the restaurant fell eerily quiet behind her. Outside, the street lamps cast long shadows across cracked pavement. Viper's gang spread out, forming a loose circle around Elena. Tourists and locals scattered, unwilling to get caught in whatever was about to unfold. Viper grinned, though the expression was more snarl than smile. This isn't over, fat woman. Not by a long shot. The first punch came from Elena, fast, controlled, catching Viper's right-hand man in the temple and dropping him instantly. The crew hesitated, realizing this wasn't going to be as easy as they'd thought. Then they surged again, more coordinated this time. Elena fought smart, using her surroundings. She ducked behind a parked car as one thug swung a metal pipe, the clang echoing through the street. Before he could recover, Elena came around the side, grabbed his arm, twisted until the pipe clattered to the ground, then drove her knee into his gut. Another attacker tried to tackle her from behind, wrapping his arms around her waist. For a moment, it seemed like the gang had the upper hand as two more joined in, trying to pin her down. Viper stepped closer, his grin widening. What's the matter, old woman? Feeling your age? Elena grimaced, her muscles straining under their combined weight. She dropped to one knee, her breathing labored, but then she shifted her weight suddenly, using their momentum against them. She threw off the first attacker, grabbed a trash can lid from the sidewalk, and used it to deflect Viper's incoming punch. Her counter uppercut caught him square in the jaw, and he staggered backward, blood streaming from his nose. The fight continued with brutal rhythm, each move calculated, each strike purposeful. Elena's endurance was tested as the gang fought relentlessly, but one by one, they fell back, their confidence evaporating. Viper lunged with a steel baton, bringing it down toward Elena's head. She rolled aside at the last second, grabbed his arm mid-swing, and twisted sharply. The baton fell, and Elena followed up with a series of rapid punches that left Viper reeling. He stumbled back, his nose bleeding, his bravado shattered. The remaining crew members hesitated, their earlier aggression fading as they saw their leader on the defensive. Elena stood tall despite her labored breathing, her eyes burning with determination. You're done. The wail of sirens grew louder, and police cars swarmed the scene. Officers poured out, guns drawn, shouting orders. Viper's remaining men dropped to their knees, hands raised. Detective Sarah Morrison stepped out of her vehicle, holstering her weapon as she approached. Her gaze landed on Viper, still struggling in Elena's grip. Vincent Caldwell, Morrison said coldly, you're under arrest for assault, conspiracy, and a list of other charges. You're finished. Viper's face turned red with fury. This is a mistake. I'll have your badge. Morrison smirked. Yeah, you've mentioned that before. Let's see how far it gets you. Viper's eyes locked onto Elena as officers moved in to cuff him. This isn't over, Reyes. You think you've won? There will always be another. Elena's gaze was steady, unflinching. Maybe. But I can stop you. And that's enough for tonight. As Viper was dragged toward a patrol car, his threats dissolving into the noise of the scene, Elena stood still for a moment, watching the man who had terrorized her town finally face consequences. Morrison approached, her expression softer than usual. You did good, Reyes. This wouldn't have happened without you. Elena shook her head. It wasn't just me. The whole town stood up. Morrison nodded, glancing around where officers continued their work. Well, they'll have one hell of a story to tell. The days following the confrontation were tense. Viper's arrest had sent shockwaves through his organization, but Elena knew better than to think it was over. Men like Viper didn't work alone, they were pawns in larger games. Her suspicions were confirmed when she started noticing patterns. The harassment hadn't been random. Businesses that resisted Viper's protection fees were the same ones being pressured to sell by Coastal Development Corporation, a real estate company that had been quietly buying up properties along the waterfront. Elena met with Marcus and a young IT specialist named Jamie at the Anchor's Rest. Jamie had been tracking unusual financial activity tied to the company. Look at this, Jamie said, turning their laptop toward Elena. On screen were shipping manifests, invoices that didn't add up, and records of trucks moving through town at odd hours. Viper wasn't just shaking down businesses. He was protecting something bigger. Marcus frowned. Like what? I'm not sure yet, Jamie admitted. But whatever it is, Coastal Development is involved. And the CEO, a guy named Richard Sterling, has connections everywhere. Money, lawyers, politicians. Elena studied the screen, her jaw tightening. Then we need to find out what he's hiding. Over the next week, Elena conducted surveillance on one of Sterling's construction sites near the docks. Trucks came and went at irregular hours, always heavily guarded. The cargo was listed as building materials, but something felt off point one night. Elena crept close enough to see inside one of the trucks. Beneath tarps were crates, not lumber or concrete, but something else. She snapped photos with a small camera Jamie had provided, zooming in on serial numbers stamped into the wood back at the restaurant. Jamie ran the numbers. Their face went pale. These match shipments flagged by federal authorities, Jamie said quietly. Illegal firearms. Military-grade stuff. Elena's stomach dropped. Sterling's running guns through our town. Marcus leaned back, exhaling slowly. If that's true, we're in way over our heads. That's why we need proof, Elena said firmly. Enough to tie Sterling directly to this. If we can do that, we can take him down. The community, emboldened by Elena's earlier stand against Viper, rallied again. Shopkeepers volunteered to watch for suspicious activity. Residents formed teams to monitor truck routes. Jamie set up a secure communication network so information could spread quickly. Elena organized the effort with quiet determination. She assigned people to different roles. Some would track shipments, others would document activity, and a core group would prepare to intercept the next major delivery point. One evening, Jamie intercepted a communication from Viper's remaining crew. There's a big shipment coming through the main warehouse tomorrow night. If we're going to stop this, that's our chance. Elena gathered the volunteers at the restaurant. This is bigger than Viper. Sterling's using our town as a front for weapons trafficking. Tomorrow night, we stop him. The plan was simple but dangerous: disrupt the shipment, expose the weapons to law enforcement, and force Sterling's hand. The warehouse loomed at the edge of the docks, its corrugated metal walls illuminated by harsh floodlights. Elena crouched behind a stack of shipping containers, her team spread out in the shadows around her. Through her earpiece, Jamie's voice crackled. First truck just arrived. 2 more scheduled. You've got maybe 15 minutes before the cops can get there. Elena signaled to her team. Stick to the plan. We're not here to fight, just to stop them from leaving. As the first truck backed into the loading bay, Elena stepped into its path, her presence commanding despite the danger. The driver slammed on the brakes, shouting for the guards. 2 armed men approached, rifles raised. Get out of the way. Not happening, Elena replied calmly. Before they could react, Marcus's team created a diversion, banging metal drums and setting off air horns. The noise drew guards away from the loading area, giving Elena the opening she needed. She yanked open the truck's back doors, revealing crates of weapons. Turning to the guards, she raised her voice so everyone could hear. This is what you're protecting. Guns that'll tear apart our streets. The guards hesitated, their confidence faltering. One raised his rifle, but Elena moved first, disarming him with a quick, practiced motion before he could fire. Chaos erupted as more trucks tried to leave, only to find their paths blocked by barricades. Volunteers armed with flashlights and noisemakers created confusion, scattering the guards. Sterling arrived in a sleek black car, flanked by 2 enforcers. His face twisted in rage as he surveyed the scene. Shut this down. I don't care how. Elena spotted him immediately. This ends tonight, Sterling. Sterling turned, his expression darkening as he saw Elena standing defiantly atop one of the trucks. You just don't know when to quit, do you? This isn't your game, Elena shot back. The cops are coming. Your operation's done. Sterling's composure cracked as sirens wailed in the distance. Police vehicles swarmed the warehouse, officers pouring out with guns drawn. Detective Morrison stepped forward, her weapon trained on Sterling. "Richard Sterling, you're under arrest for arms trafficking, conspiracy, and more charges than I can count. You're finished." Sterling's face turned red with fury. "This is a mistake. I'll bury you all." Morrison smirked. "Let's see how that works out." As Sterling was cuffed and dragged toward a patrol car, Elena stood still, watching the man who'd terrorized her town finally face justice. Morrison approached. "You did it, Reyes. This wouldn't have happened without you." Elena shook her head. "It wasn't just me. We did this together." The morning after Sterling's arrest, the town felt different. The usual sounds returned, boats heading out to sea, shopkeepers opening their doors, children playing in the streets. It was ordinary, almost serene. But beneath the calm, something had shifted. Elena sat on the steps outside her shop, a mug of coffee in her hands. She watched people pass by, their steps lighter, their smiles more genuine. Marcus arrived with pastries from a local bakery. He sat beside her, offering one without a word. "They're calling you a hero," he said after a moment. Elena exhaled, shaking her head. "I'm no hero. Just someone who couldn't stand by anymore." Marcus smiled. "You gave people hope. You showed them they didn't have to be afraid." Elena's gaze dropped. She thought about her younger years, the closed doors, the dismissive looks, the constant struggle to prove herself. The scars she carried weren't just from kickboxing. They were from a lifetime of being underestimated. "This wasn't just about Sterling," Elena said quietly. "It was about showing everyone, myself included, that we deserve better. That we belong, no matter what anyone says." Marcus squeezed her shoulder. "And you did that." That evening, the community gathered at the Anchor's Rest. The back room was packed, the air buzzing with energy. People shared stories, laughed, and celebrated their victory. Elena stood at the edge, watching. For so long, she'd felt like an outsider. But here, surrounded by people who'd fought alongside her, she realized something had changed. She belonged. Marcus nudged her forward. "Go on. They're waiting." Elena stepped to the center, and the room fell quiet. "I'm not good at speeches," she began, her voice rough but steady. "But I want to say thank you. Not for me, for each other. For standing up when it mattered." She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. "This town isn't just a place. It's people. People who fight for what's right, even when it's hard. And you all reminded me that strength isn't just about fighting, it's about standing together." The room erupted in applause, but Elena raised a hand gently. "There's still work to do. Sterling's gone, but there will always be others. We have to keep fighting, not with violence, but with resolve." As the gathering wound down, Elena stayed behind, staring at a map pinned to the wall. Marcus approached. "What's next for you?" Elena shrugged thoughtfully. "I don't know. But I think I'm finally where I'm supposed to be." Marcus smiled. "The town protector." Elena chuckled. "Something like that." For Elena, the journey wasn't over. The town would need her in the days ahead as they rebuilt and guarded against new threats. But she'd found her place, not just as a protector, but as a leader. Together with Marcus's Jamie and the community, they'd built something stronger than any of them had imagined. And Elena knew that whatever came next, they'd face it together.